This is the immediate aftermath of an Israeli attack on a tent outside the Al-Sharif hospital in eastern Gaza. Inside were 5 Al-Jazeera journalists who were all killed. One of the victims, 28-year-old reporter al-Sharif, was tweeting about the attack just before he died. In one post he says, "Breaking, intense concentrated Israeli bombardment using fire belts is hitting the eastern and southern areas of Gaza City." One of his final posts read, "This is my will and my final message. If these words reach you, know that Israel has succeeded in killing me and silencing my voice." The morning after the attack showed the full extent of the damage, with fellow journalists still struggling to process what had happened.
The killing of our colleagues, the journalists from Al-Jazeera, is a crime that was not the first of its kind. The occupation, from the beginning of the aggression, has killed tens of journalists, and this is a crime that the international parties must stand up to. And there must be a court case against the occupation for these crimes that are committed against our colleagues who convey the truth.
The attack was condemned by Al Jazeera. However, in a statement, the Israeli government said that al-Sharif led a Hamas cell responsible for organizing rocket attacks on Israeli civilians and troops, claiming a press badge wasn't a shield for terrorism. The United Nations and others have said Israel had not provided credible evidence for these claims. The Chinese government has also given its reaction, saying that China opposed all moves that harm civilians and condemned violent moves targeting correspondents. Al-Sharif is just the latest Al Jazeera employee to have been killed by Israeli forces during the conflict in Gaza. Well, they include cameraman Samir Abu Daka, who was killed in December 2023. Reporter Ismail Al-Ghul and his cameraman Rami Al-Rifi were also killed in August 2024. And just a few months ago, in March, Al Jazeera correspondent Hossam Shobat lost his life following an Israeli attack. In total, the Committee to Protect Journalists estimate that 186 reporters have been killed covering the conflict in Gaza. While those figures are disputed by both Hamas and the Israelis, what is in no doubt is that this conflict has been one of the deadliest for media this century. Rahul Pathak, CGTN, London.
Funerals were held earlier Monday for the journalists killed in Gaza. Our correspondent Rami Al-Magari reports from the Gaza Strip.
A sad morning for the journalist community here in the Gaza Strip, as the journalist community has just finished the prayer for 5 Palestinian journalists who were killed overnight by the Israeli army, including the Al Jazeera channel's Arabic channel, al-Sharif, who has been known as a brave journalist in the territory since the war has begun in October 7 of 2023, including also his colleagues Mohammed Kureka and others, 3 others. This Israeli army strike on the journalists occurred near the Al-Sharif hospital, right on their tent, in which they were working, sleeping and doing all the hard work overnight and day. This Israeli strike over the journalists is not the first of its type. More than 200 journalists were killed during this war that Israel has launched on the Gaza Strip.
What happened was that I was in a tent next to the one that was targeted. Suddenly we heard the sound of an explosion and saw flames erupting. My colleagues around me were injured and I suffered bruises while trying to escape. I found my tent filled with shrapnel.
Since October 7th, more than 230 journalists have been killed in the largest massacre ever committed against the press. Never before in any local or international conflict, or even during the First or Second World War, has such a large number of journalists been killed.
We are now paying the price for keeping Gaza's voice loud and for the screens being filled with images and the voices of journalists who Israel kills and incites against. The world must now take a step forward to hold the Israeli occupation accountable and stop the killing of civilians and journalists in Gaza.
والإصرار على وقف قتل المدنيين في غزة.
Also, let us here mention that the Israeli army stated yesterday that it targeted militant of Hamas, something that all the journalist community and all the Gaza Strip are denying vehemently, saying that journalist work is highly important for the truth to be spoken out to the world. Rami Al-Mighari, CGTN, Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City.